The room was packed. Journalists elbowed their way to the front. Cameras clicked nonstop, and microphones extended like eager hands, desperate to capture every word. The nation had its eyes locked on this moment. Karoline Leavitt, the rising conservative firebrand, had stepped onto the podium, ready to address what many call the most controversial week of her political career. Her opponents were sure she was about to crumble. The media had spent days crafting the perfect storm of accusations, ambush questions, and relentless narratives designed to put her on the defensive. What they didn't realize, however, was that Karoline Leavitt had walked into that press conference prepared for war. The reporters grinned like sharks sending blood in the water. But in the next hour and a half, they would regret ever underestimating her. As soon as Karoline adjusted the microphone, the first question fired like a sniper's bullet. Ms. Leavitt, your recent statements about media bias have sparked outrage. Are you doubling down on your claim that mainstream journalism is working against conservative voices? The crowd hushed. Karoline didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in slightly, a smirk creeping across her lips. It's not a claim, it's a fact. And this very press conference is about to prove it. A murmur spread through the journalists. The game had begun. Another reporter jumped in. You've been accused of spreading misinformation regarding election integrity. Will you take responsibility for misleading your followers? Karoline tilted her head, feigning curiosity. Misleading? Interesting choice of words. I assume you're referring to the same claims made by your network, which ran countless unverified stories about Russian collusion, only to be disproven years later? Shall we talk about misleading the American people? The journalist stiffened. The room tensed. Karoline had just turned the question around with a precision strike. The next reporter didn't hesitate. Ms. Leavitt, critics say your policies favor the wealthy and ignore the struggles of marginalized communities. What do you say to those who call your platform elitist? Karoline's expression remained poised. Elitist? Let's talk about elitism. The people attacking me sit in multi-million-dollar newsrooms, pushing narratives handed to them by executives who have never stepped foot in Middle America. Meanwhile, I travel state to state, speaking directly with small business owners, single parents, and everyday Americans who can barely afford groceries due to reckless policies your networks refuse to challenge. If fighting for those people is elitist, then I guess I'm guilty. The room fell silent. The cameras rolled. And somewhere, the producers in their newsroom scrambled to figure out how to spin this. When reporters realized they were losing ***, the media had come expecting a slaughter. They just didn't realize they were the ones being outmaneuvered. Ms. Leavitt, are you concerned that your refusal to embrace progressive policies will alienate younger voters? She chuckled. You mean the same progressive policies that have led to skyrocketing crime, failing schools, and economic instability? Young voters are waking up, and that's why you're panicking. A few gasps, a few suppressed laughs, even a couple of quiet claps from the back. The walls were closing in on the press. After an hour of relentless exchanges, the momentum had shifted entirely. The reporters who had come armed with accusations now sat in stunned silence. The energy in the room had changed. Karoline Leavitt had taken every trap, every leading question, and flipped it into a masterclass of media takedown. A final attempt was made. Ms. Leavitt, do you worry that your strong rhetoric is dividing the nation? She smiled. Truth isn't divisive. What's divisive is a media machine that manipulates narratives, suppresses dissent, and treats Americans like they're too dumb to see through the lies. The real question isn't whether I'm dividing the nation. It's whether the media is afraid of the nation waking up. The silence was deafening. The press conference had turned into something no one expected, a reckoning. After 90 minutes, the questions slowed. The journalists, once eager to corner her, now glanced at each other, hesitant to continue. They had never faced an opponent like this. One who not only answered their questions, but dismantled the very premise behind them. She leaned in one last time. For years, the media has controlled the narrative. Today, you lost control of it. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's time to ask yourselves why. The room erupted in a mixture of stunned silence, scattered applause, and frantic typing as reporters tried to salvage their crumbling talking points. Karoline walked off the stage, victorious. The media had tried to corner her, but in the end, they were the ones who left the press conference in pieces. And as the footage went viral, America watched, not just in shock, but in recognition. The tide was turning, and Karoline Leavitt had just delivered the first wave.